So for today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at an English VN that really surprised the hell out of me when I first read it. This is an English visual novel that was developed by a small team of talented artists. And it's a really special visual novel for me because, well, this was the first ever visual novel that I've ever read in my entire life. And it opened up my eyes to a plethora of other stories that I personally enjoyed and loved. So, we're going to be taking a look at that visual novel. This is Arcade Spirits. Released back in February 12, 2019 on PC and then later May 1st, 2020 on all consoles, this is Arcade Spirits, a romantic comedy English visual novel that follows an alternate timeline where the video game crash never happened. The visual novel was developed by Fiction Factory Games and published by PQ. The game also released a physical copy which I own and it's pretty cool, but we'll be taking a look at the PC version. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the visual novel. It's the year 20XX, arcades reign supreme as the video game crash never happened. You are Ari Cater. After losing your job from a family curse that's constantly following you, your best friend Juniper recommends you an app called Iris to help get your life back into shape. Then you meet, well, Iris, your personal life coach who wants to help Ari find a better life, a better job, and their true love. So she helps Ari locate a job in a small local arcade called the Funplex. Here is where you meet the Funplex crew. You got your fellow co-workers, sweet and calm arcade owner Francine, gaming historian and tech expert Naomi, business expert Gavin, and the bubbly cosplayer Ashley. You also have your fellow gamer friends who are regulars at the arcade. You got the kind-hearted Mr. Moopy expert Percy, badass esports player Queen Bee, and pro dancer Teo. After meeting everyone, Ari's story will soon begin as a new chapter in his life unfolds. The story really caught my interest when I first got the visual novel. It's an interesting take to a romantic comedy story and had some potential. Thankfully, it was executed very well. It's a story that continues to grow more and more interesting as each chapter ends. It becomes a bit more intense and serious as it gets closer to the final chapters. It's full of surprises and wholesome moments, and the way it used gaming as the focal point of the story was absolutely fascinating. If you're gonna read this visual novel for the first time, you're honestly gonna be in for a shock. The gameplay is like any other visual novel, however choice making is very important this time. Here is where one of the most interesting aspects of the visual novel play here. Almost all the choices you make will showcase what type of personality you have. All the choices are based on a type of personality, and every time you make a choice, that specific personality level, well, increases. And depending on which personality level is the highest, it'll play a big role in some parts of the visual novel, as you'll have to make some heavy decisions that can change the story in a different way. And these heavy decisions will be based on your top 2 highest personality levels, as it'll be the only choices you'll be given. The rest you can't choose. Also, your arcade friends will have their own personality, and depending on what type of choice you make, your friendship meter with that character will rise. Let's say you're talking with Naomi, a choice pops up. If you choose a choice that's related to her love of arcades or her personality, you'll level up your friendship with her. If you choose a choice that isn't related to arcades or is the complete opposite of her personality, you won't be able to level up. The visual novel also lets you create your own custom character. Sadly, the customization is very limited, which is a shame, but it was nice that the developers allowed players to create their own character and creating them in their own way, as well as choosing their pronouns, which is a nice touch. And you can also choose whether to romance someone or simply not romance anybody and be everybody's friend, which is a very welcoming decision in case you're not interested in romance. The writing is pretty good. There's a lot of clever jokes along with some emotional and inspirational lines that each character would say at many points in the story. Much of the writing works extremely well in some of the more important scenes, as you can really feel the heart and emotion of those lines. Yeah, some of the writing can be a bit cheesy, but I feel like that's really the charm to the visual novel. The art is especially really good and amazing to look at. It has a specific aesthetic that really fits in with the retro modern vibe the novel is giving off. Much of the main cast as well look amazing, and their designs fit so goddamn well. God, I especially love Queen Bee's and Naomi's designs. Both look so amazing and fit their character perfectly. Also the music. My god, the music is phenomenal. The music was done by, and I'm sorry if I pronounced this wrong, Greg Merlis. The music captures perfectly the atmosphere of the novel, and again, with such a wavy, retro modern vibe to it. It sounds so good when I first heard the music, and I knew I had to download the soundtrack. The characters are so likable. They don't feel forgettable at all. These are characters that you can possibly relate to in a personal level. They have a strong spirit within them and are full of personality, with Queen Bee being my personal favorite character. I mean, come on, how could you not love this competitive, loud, and playful woman who secretly has a heart of gold? And hey, there's voice acting! Well, partial voice acting, sadly. This is the only thing I kind of felt a tiny bit disappointed by. The entire visual novel is partially voiced, which is still really cool. And there are some big name VAs in here which caught me by surprise. Here, listen to the voice acting.
Seriously? Seriously? That's 3 jobs since we left the suburbs.
I'm here to help you get your dream job, your dream house, and your dream partner.
Oh, don't be. He died doing what he loved. Having intensely physical relations with me.
The arcade industry is high risk, high reward. I manage that risk so that they can also find happiness in their lives.
I take it he sent you along to help? Great. Give me a hand with this monitor. It's really heavy, and I'm still paranoid about dropping it after what happened last time. Oh, well, I dropped it.
Hey, so I'm sorry if I traumatized you. Really, can we start over maybe?
Well then, it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, and I look forward to getting to know you better.
Hey, they haven't given you a name tag yet. How am I supposed to know who you are?
I just like to show newbies the ropes and teach them how to play. Our community is small, but we're all super close.
By the way, there's no 18 plus content in this visual novel, and I'm fine with that to be honest, but I just kinda wish the developers would have added maybe a kissing CG, since there's barely any romantic CGs, as it would have been great, and honestly wholesome. So this visual novel doesn't have any roots, as it's focusing completely on the main story of the visual novel. There are a total of 8 chapters or levels as they call it, and after you complete the 8th and final chapter of the visual novel, you did it! You successfully finished the story! But while the main story is the big focus, another focus is the story of each character. Each character has a reason as to why they all work or hang out at the arcade. They all have a situation they're dealing with or a past that was difficult to overcome. And as you continue to hang out with these characters, you learn more about them. Like Naomi, she didn't want to be a nurse or a police officer, she just simply wanted to fix and restore old arcade games. That's all she ever wanted to do in her life. Another example is Queen Bee. Her story mostly deals with the difficulties of retaining your popularity as an esports player while dealing with the horrible treatment in her esports team, as she's the only woman in the team. It's moments like these where you really get to know these characters in a more personal way. I really like the main character and how he was written. The MC has dealt with many problems throughout their life due to a family curse that they believe they have. They want to overcome it, which is the reason why they want to find a dream to accomplish. This is an MC who tries to inspire themselves as they try to make their dream come alive. And I love how depending on your highest personality level, your character can act in many different ways, which can vary from playthrough, which is extremely fascinating. But it's also really sweet to see how helpful and compassionate they are with trying to help out their Funplex friends. I also like how that Arcade Spirits is not afraid to talk about some serious topics or showcase some uncomfortable or serious events. It doesn't try to hide anything. The visual novel wants you to know about these difficulties the characters or MC is going through. The final chapters, especially level 7, will be quite surprising to many readers. Even I wasn't expecting something like that to happen. But this keeps you entertained and makes you want to read more as to how this story will end and what will happen to these characters. The romance aspect of the novel is so wholesome and adorable. It's really sweet to see your character and your special someone interact and flirt with each other. Level 5 especially will showcase all that strong romantic fluff in a very romantic manner, as that level you will choose who you want to date. It's cute to see how far your relationship with your special someone has gone through, from complete strangers to a full-on couple. It's simply a really nice thing to see. The comedy is on the mixed side, to be honest. There's a lot of jokes that will really make you laugh, but most of the time it will be either a hit or miss for some readers. You'll either enjoy it or just shrug it off. I think it's just a matter of preferences if you really like this type of comedy. But either way, this visual novel shines with strong personality and charm. I think that may be the reason why I wanted to read this visual novel. It's just very likable and a really enjoyable story. And the drama within the story, while it's very short and resolved very quickly, it's still done extremely well. And once you finish the finale, you'll no doubt be left satisfied after reading the entire story. Arcade Spirits received very positive reviews from critics and players alike. So what are my thoughts on this visual novel? I simply adored it. This was a fantastic visual novel to read. Sure, it's not perfect, as it does have some very minor problems, but very minor, like the limited customization and comedy. But it's still an extremely enjoyable visual novel, filled with lovable characters, a really cool and lovely art style, an awesome retro style soundtrack, fantastic partial voice acting, wholesome romance, clever writing, and a very intriguing story. Arcade Spirits is filled with charm, personality, and love. It's a visual novel that showcases how special the arcades can be and how special it is to many people, as well as showcasing that some dreams can come true, even to the people who are feeling like they are just failing at life right now. I'm just so glad that this was the very first visual novel I've ever read, as it introduced me to a big world of visual novels. For me, and in my opinion, this is a perfect visual novel if you want to get started with reading visual novels. And I promise you this, that you are going to enjoy reading this novel. Honestly, I'm really glad that that was my first ever visual novel. It just really captured my attention with its uniqueness and really great story. And it had such likable characters as well. And the soundtrack was really funky too. It does have some issues, of course, but nonetheless, it was still a great experience for me and opened up my eyes to visual novels as a whole. And they did announce a sequel. But let me ask you this. Do you think this sequel will be better than the first? Do you really think they will fix up those issues that the first one had? Do you really think they would make a much better story and filled with more likable characters? Do you really think he could do that? 2 years later!